I'm going to take a look at Wu Dang matching sword. So, anyway, in Wu Dang matching sword, you start. We're just going to start from right here. So you're like this. Let me see. Actually, we're like this. Boom. So it starts here, and then I come forward, and I thrust with the blade horizontal like that, so it slips in between the ribs instead of this way it would get caught in the ribs. So we slip between the ribs like that, palm up, right? So the other person goes back and thrusts my hand, and when I see that, I pull my hand back to get out of the way, right? And then I'm going to come up underneath his sword and slash. Don't look at this sword over here. I'm just going to come up. I'm going to come up underneath and slash the sword here. So I'm hitting him from underneath. And actually, let's get this sword out of the way because it's a total nuisance and in the way. There we go. That's better. All right. So let's start that again. So I'm here, palm up, and then I come forward and thrust to the heart. Then the other person tries to thrust my hand. When they thrust my hand, I get my hand out of the way, and then I come up underneath and go to cut his hand. Then he goes to cut my hand, so I bring it over and cut his hand. I'm in cat stance. Let me see what comes after that. After I try and cut his hand here, I think we both go like this. No, he comes. Let me see. I go to cut his hand like that, and then he actually comes around my sword and tries to hit me there. So I come back like this again. As he tries to cut my hand. Yeah, then I think we go like this. Then he goes to thrust me again in the midsection or in the heart. I'm like this. I do a sidestep and I go to thrust his hand. He moves his hand and comes up the sword. I raise my hand out of the way and we walk around in a circle. And as I'm working around, if my blade is pointing at him, I can go ahead and thrust it in. If not, we're just matching each other and we'll walk around to the other side. But I'm going to go ahead and stay on this side to make it easier because these cords and stuff like that. So I'm here. I could actually start sliding up his blade to cut his hand. He moves his hand up into the back and I follow it in. Then when it's out of the way, then I can cut his stomach. So I go to cut his stomach, and when I go to cut his stomach, he cuts my hand. So I get my hand out of the way, and then he goes to cut my stomach. I go after his hand. He gets his hand out of the way, goes up. Once his hand is out of the way, then I can cut his stomach. He goes to cut my hand. I get my hand out of the way. He goes to cut my stomach. I then go to cut his hand. He gets his hand up and back, and then his stomach is open, so I go to cut his stomach. Boom, and we go back and forth like this. Now, we do this again on the fourth time. Then what I do is I'm coming up like this. Actually, what he does is he goes on top of my sword and pushes it down on the ground. Boom. So I'm down like this. He's got his sword on top. Then he goes to hit me in the head, and I get out of the head, out of the way, and pop up underneath and cut his hand like that. Then he goes to cut my hand, and I go like this. Okay? And then we walk around again. go to the other side, but I won't do that. And then, let me see, what do we do from here? From here, we walk around again. Oh, and then we get into this deal where I thrust toward his face, and he goes to hit my hand. When he goes to hit my hand, I move my hand out of the way, and then he goes to thrust my face, and I go to cut him with the back of the blade. And then I go to thrust his face, and he goes to hit my hand, and I move it out of the way. Then he's thrusting at my face. I go to cut his hand with the back of the blade. If this sword had a back of the blade that was sharp. Once his hand is out of the way, then his face is open, so I thrust his face. Then he goes to hit my hand. I get my hand out of the way. Then he goes to thrust my face, and I cut his hand like this, see? And then, and then I go to cut his hand. He gets his hand out of the way, and then I go to thrust. Okay? And then after we do this multiple times, after we do this 3 times, then I'm going to thrust his face. I'm on top, and for each step, I try and go around. And I'm going around like I'm going to cut his leg or his hand, and I'm going around like this till we get to the other side. Now, if I were on the opposite side here, so this is not a move for this side. If I was on the opposite side, my sword would be going like this. All right? So we do this 3 times, and after the 3rd time, it looks like I'm going for his leg again, but instead I speed up and go for his neck. So when I go to chop the head off, us, again on this side, when they go to chop our head, we get back like this, and then we come forward to chop his leg. When we come forward to chop his leg, when the other guy goes to get his leg chopped, the other guy moves his leg out of the way and cuts to hit the leg. Boom. After that, I'm not sure if it's time to, maybe we go back like this again, and then one of us goes to the other guy goes to chop my head like this, stepping forward to chop the head. And so if the other guy's chopping my head, then what we do on our side is we go back, mirror the same technique, step off line, and chop to his head. So we would hit their sword and block it a little bit, and then we'd slide down and chop the hand. And then we both step back, because he's stepping back, obviously, because he doesn't want his hand chopped. So he's going to chop and then go back, because I'm trying to chop his hand, so he goes back. And then from there, I'm not sure what we do from there. But this is just some interesting things to think about on how virtual reality could be used for teaching swordsmanship. And basically, one of the principles that we could talk about here is, if I'm like this, I don't want to be like this trying to chop his hand. I want to be at an angle. See, there's a triangle here. I want to be like this trying to chop his hand, or I want to be like this trying to chop his hand. So my blade is close to his hand, but my hand is far away from his blade. So we just want to keep this triangulation so that we're hitting his hand, but our hand is actually far away from his blade. So that's the kind of triangulation we want. Boom. See? So these different moves where we're putting our blade there, but it's far away from his.